There's those fleeting moments at the start, and then the programming slips back in. You're going to fail. What happens if you don't get enough money? You're not going to be able to provide. This is your identity. And then the identity actually is the biggest one, because it's the life you've created and it's the life people know you as. So I was the electrician that works in the mines, earned lots of money, had this perfect life perception. And when I was getting these fleeting moments of leaving, people are like, you're crazy. I was on 200 grand a year and people are like, you're an idiot. What are you doing? Like, this is the best job you could have. I'm like, I'm trading my soul, my relationships, my health and everything for the dollar.
On this week's podcast episode, I talk with men's coach Mitch Adams on meaning, identity, and taking life from the ordinary to the extraordinary. We cover meaning instead of accumulation, your identity, the gap of reality, the tipping point, the importance of primal and rewildering for men, and much, much more. Enjoy the episode. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Momentum Lifestyle Podcast by myself, Blake Worrell-Thompson.
And me, Genoa Van Keekum. Momentum is a men's wellbeing and performance community dedicated to helping men be better.
Each week, we deep dive with your favorite thought leaders and experts from around the world to get their insights to help you be better. Enjoy the episode. Mitchell Adams, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Blake. Thanks for having me on, mate.
Mate, looking forward to talking all things men's work, some of those rewilding camps that I've seen pictures of, and your experience in kind of men's work and your own evolution. But before we get started, can you give the guys a 60 to 90 second spiel of your life and what's got you to where you are now?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I mean, it's a lot to condense, but I'll give the short version. So I'm a 31-year-old father of a 14-year-old daughter, become a dad at 17. That was probably a massive catalyst for me, feeling that pressure of, okay, now I've got to provide for another being and I want them to thrive. So that kind of sends you into a life of purpose and trying to live your truest potential. So that kind of started my journey, but we'll talk about that a little bit more through the podcast. But where I'm at now is I'm running a men's mental health and self-development business on the Sunshine Coast, and also running a coaching business, and living my purpose, living my truth, and thriving and enjoying being a dad, and living the coastal beach life on the Sunshine Coast. So,
I was doing the maths in my head as you were talking through that fatherhood, and then you came through with it at age 17. What came up for you in that, I guess, kind of first period? It's obviously a while ago now, but do you remember, that's a hard and fast initiation. Do you remember kind of what support you had, what support you would have liked, what your kind of inner dialogue was?
Yeah, so initially when I found out, as a young man, you've got all these aspirations and you've got a vision of what you think your life's going to look like and some control around that. And then when that is thrown in, you're like, I have no control over anything. And it was kind of like, I could really see that tipping point or that fork in the road where, many that become a victim of their circumstance or go, actually, how can I turn this into a positive? And the initial was tending to go to, oh, my life's over and I'm not going to be able to do what I want. And then quickly, I had great support from my mother, which was amazing. And she allowed me to see the gift in it quite early, which was a blessing for me. And although it didn't take away from the big change and the massive transformation, it was perfect. I can look back now and say, it was a hard time, but it's honestly the best thing that ever happened to me. And I feel like most parents or fathers will say the same thing, because when they do that, their whole perspective and reality changes on how they view the world, because now they have someone else to provide for. And I feel that is a gift at 17. And that's probably, it has definitely contributed to me being the man I am today, like in thriving and trying to be an inspiration for others and that kind of stuff.
So when you think about becoming the protector and the provider and, everything else that comes with, one, a partner, but two, a father, how does that change your perspective of the world? Because I know this is a common thread and common language that you use of everything changes for me. But what exactly does change, and how do the filters in which you look at the world change?
Big question. So
see how you go.
So in a nutshell, you're now not just thinking about yourself and those materialistic things that you now desired kind of change. It becomes more one of meaning, a life of meaning rather than a life of accumulation. And I mean, we're all brainwashed in some way as a young age to be persuaded to disconnect from self and go after this false reality. And I too, the same, just like everybody else, did that. And at the start thought, okay, I feel this perceived pressure of what success is, and I need to provide now. I need to get a home. I need to have the white picket fence and the family and do that. And so that drove me to looking at the money side of things and thinking that that was the right way. The support needed was finances. I now see that's completely false, but it drove me to go to the mines. And I was in the mining industry for 8 years, trying to live two lives, really, trying to live this life of going to the mine and disconnecting from what was happening at home to try and get through my days. And then also coming home and then trying to be a dad. And well, it allowed me to see where I didn't want to be. It allowed me to see the toxic masculinity within the male space and how we're all just in this rat race and it's to a false finish line. There is no finish line. And sooner or later, I got to this point of helping many men in the mining industry from being on my own self-development journey and helping them and then them leaving the mines and me still there, like thinking, I've helped him see another choice, another possibility. And it was something keeping me there was the money and was this pressure. And then as I got to a level of consciousness where I could actually reflect on my own personal experience enough to go, I've had enough. And I remember the day clearly. I was driving to the mines and I said to myself, do you want to live an ordinary life or do you want to live an extraordinary life? And I just said, I want to live an extraordinary life. And I said, anything that doesn't allow that, I uncreate and destroy it. And I said yes out loud in the car and then I smiled. And I only lasted 2 more weeks at my job. My relationship I was currently in, it just broke away. It was like tethering there while I was out there. And so it was nearly like everything that wasn't serving me just did this flip and left. And I remember just being on the couch going, oh, this is my second chance. And this is my chance now to create the life I want. So, and then I've been on this epic journey to now just like living my truth and showing up and on this amazing mission internally to thrive and be happy every day.
That fork in the road moment and the transition is one that I think anyone who's doing this type of work has been through in their own kind of way. What was the inner dialogue like? Because the conditioning and programming to continue to live the rat race, the accumulation, the materialistic, the status is really strong, as we can all attest to. And for us, when we've kind of, I guess, seen things different and we can start to shift away from it. But if you look at the majority of blokes, they're still stuck in that. And there's probably questions of like, is this all there is? Or is there a better way to do it?
Yeah.
What was the inner dialogue for you like as you're going through that transition? And what were some of the challenges that you found as you really kind of started to flip your life upside down?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a bit of a seesaw because on one moment you're like, yep, I can do this. I'm going to take this leap. I'm going to leave this life. And there's those fleeting moments at the start. And then the programming slips back in. You're going to fail. What happens if you don't get enough money? You know, you're not going to be able to provide. This is your identity. And then the identity actually is the biggest one because it's the life you've created and it's the life people know you as. So I was the electrician who works in the mines, earned lots of money, had this perfect life perception. And when I was getting these fleeting moments of leaving, people are like, you're crazy. You know, I was on 200 grand a year and people are like, you're an idiot. What are you doing? Like, this is the best job you could have. I'm like, I'm trading my soul, my relationships, my health and everything for the dollar. And at the start, I couldn't see it clearly until your relationship breaks down. And then you're like, well, why am I actually out here? The person that I love the most is my daughter at home. And she doesn't care about how much money. She cares about how much love I can give her. So the inner dialogue changed over many years to one of, I've got nothing to lose. And if it doesn't work out, choose again. And it got to that point where I just chose and I backed myself and I took that leap. And it's the synchronicities that play out. I'm a big believer in the energetics of everything you do and who you surround yourself with. And it was kind of like an energetic contract with myself that when I started to do it, it was a self-perpetuation of good choices added up and the right people at the right time come into my space and allowed me to go, oh, there it is. I need to talk to this person. I need to do that. And I know it's just snowballed into this most amazing experience. And I can look back and with like all the challenges and I appreciate all the things that I thought were hard. They actually help you build resilience and actually take the leap. And I think that's where most men are now is there's the collective energy is shifting and we're getting to this like tipping point where the money doesn't really matter because if you're already a life sentence, if you're in a job you hate. And so why not leave that and be happy every day? And so the money follows. The money is a byproduct of, if you live your passion, people resonate with your passion, people want to back you, people want to be around you. And then the money comes in an authentic, congruent way, and it feels better. Like, you're like, I'm actually earning money and I'm happy and I'm giving back to the planet and men. And that's how Gentlemen's Club came about. I was like I've done it and I'm living my truth. And like, how can I help more men see that they're just one choice or one perspective shift away from taking that leap? And when they do that, we support them in their goals. We support them in giving them new thought patterns, creating new synaptic connections, habits, and all these little things add up to kind of like an explosion of reality inside their minds where they're just like, oh, I see it. Where a few months ago, it's just like literally a brick wall. They're looking at no possibility. And then a second, they're like literally being reborn for yourself. And I had that. And now being able to facilitate that in other men is, it's a game changer. And it lights me up. And yeah, so a lot there, but.
Love it. If you think about your own experience, and also we'll go into the Gentlemen's Club in a sec, do you find, I think what we've found is it's equal parts terrifying and equal parts liberating, in terms of terrifying of like the whole social construct in which you've built your life around, and the hamster wheel that you've been on, and this elusive carrot that keeps getting dangled in front of you has been like people's identity. And then also there's a freedom and liberation on the other side of like, oh, it makes sense now why that wasn't fulfilling or that wasn't aligned. What have you found to be the common dialogue, struggles, stories that come up for people as you help them transition from, we could almost call it the matrix, to a world that is more aligned for them?
I think people are scared of the unknown. And that's the biggest thing, is we are biologically designed to, scope out fear. And is that scary? Is that fearful? Is that safe? Am I going to be okay? And that's like going back to our hunter-gatherer days. Like, we're designed to search to make sure no one's trying to kill us. And so we have this, and it's actually a detriment to us while we think like that, because now we're in an evolutionary world where those stresses aren't there. And so the men tend to shy away from the unknown. And I try to say to them, I say, like, if a canvas is already painted, is there any room for anything else to show up? Can you paint anything else on it? And they're like, no. I say, so if there's a blank canvas, how much room for possibility to paint what you want is there? And they're like, well, it's unlimited. I said, that is exactly the same as this life you're choosing, the canvas that's already painted and the canvas is the blank. And when they see that, I'm like, there's an infinite amount of possibility that can show up the second that you let go of this other reality. And it takes a little bit, but it's like planting a seed and letting that seed grow to a point where the guys are like, I've got nothing to lose, because you're showing them like, well, are you happy? And they're like, no, I'm miserable. Okay, so what other choice do you have? Like, you can't be any miserable. There's only one way to go, like, just take a leap. And if it fails, choose again. And you're going to learn. You're going to learn how to do something, different in another way. And it is a process. And I think it takes some people a light bulb moment or a realization, or it takes some people many years to finally be able to take the leap. And everyone's different. And for myself, it took me years, but it took me to open my perspective to one of, well, what else is possible, and I'd say that to myself every day, what else is possible? And as soon as you ask a question, it's like, oh, anything's possible. And yeah, so it's asking more questions. The more questions we ask, the more answers we get. And in a dialogue for the men is ask more questions. They're not asking any questions. They're just, the 95% of our thoughts that we thought the day before, we're thinking again on the present day. And so, start changing the way you look at things, and things you look at change. All these sayings, like, they're all true. Like, so yeah, we get the guys to start building new pathways, and then the perspective shift happens over a period of, could be a week, could be a month, could be a whole year. But yeah, it's just creating that possibility for the men. Yeah.
So what did it look like for you? Because the transition can be a little bit hairy when you leave behind stability and what's familiar, even if it sucks, to step into something that is more aligned. What do you remember about your transition period from obviously being out in the mines to creating what you've created now? Have you got a bit of a timeline of how that kind of looked for you?
Yeah, so there were some pretty dark moments. I'd had a 7-year relationship as well. And it was the person I thought I was going to spend my life with. And one of the reasons is, we have these goals of, if I keep working out of the mines, when we have kids, it'll be smooth sailing. I'll be able to be that, take the kids to sports days and I'll be able to do these. And so they were kind of some of the things that we think about because it's what we all chat about, And when that relationship finally fell, well, it was like at the end of its tether, I guess. And when I decided to step into a different reality, that just couldn't stick around anymore because the gap was too big between her reality and what my reality was. So there was some dark moments of only knowing a life with her and then not having her and going, oh, okay, so what does my life look like? I'm not an electrician anymore and I don't have the person I was going to spend my life with. So there was some very depressed, down moments and lonely moments living in a house that you'd only lived in with her and like all these, they're just all programming, but it was lots of things coming up for me. And I suppose it took me probably, 3 to 6 months before I was in a space where I was like, it's go time, like you stop being a victim, you're just filling your mind with stuff that doesn't matter. You can either make this define you as, your life going this path you don't want or go after what you want. And I think it was, again, energetic contract with myself. And once I made that commitment, within 6 months, we'd sold out a 10-man gentlemen's club program, like from the changing of that to then going to a Wim Hof fundamentals ice bath workshop and then meeting my business partner there. And after that was 2 months and we're doing the gentlemen's club. I'm like, this is where I need to be. So I definitely had one of those dark night of the soul moments. And I could definitely see again, another time like the fork in the road. It was the fork in the road of I either go down drinking and the distractions and, my mates said, oh, you just got to find another woman and you'll get over her. And I was like, no, I know this is wrong, so I went into such strict energetics of anyone that was not serving my life, friends, relationships, anything, even family. I just completely boxed it out and didn't allow anyone into my space that didn't have my best interest at heart because essentially that was just going to throw me back. And if they didn't have my best interest at heart, they don't have the best interest of the planet and everyone around it because that's what I had in my heart. I was like, no, this is my chance to make a difference. So yeah, I just trusted. It was just heaps of trust, lots of trust in myself. I knew I had the abilities. And when that self-doubt would come out, I would quickly jolt the energy because it's false. So I was like, I've got to jolt this energy. And that took, ice baths, breath work, meditation. I ate so vigilantly. I have for many years now, like spray-free, everything organic, mainly carnivore diet and just morning routines, like just everything. And it's like compound interest with your finances. It compounded and then slingshotted me into a reality that I live today and I feel amazing. And yeah, I mean, not until you feel it and see it can you perceive it. And I think that's what people struggle with. They can't perceive where they want to go. So and my mission is at the start, it's like you want to change the planet and you want to help the planet and you want to help people. And then I think like that can be very daunting if you think about trying to change the whole planet. So I was like, how can I just change myself into the best human I can be and just be an inspiration or invitation for other people to do the same? And when I started doing that, I just feel like everything kind of falls into place because you're living your truth and you're a man of your word and people can see that authenticity. And it's not hard. Like people think it's so hard. I mean, I think it's harder to lie to yourself every day. That's so hard. Like I can't even perceive doing that now. People have said to me, I've been offered more money to go back to my old jobs before. And I said to them, look, you could offer me $1 million for the year. And I'd say no. I'm happy. And yeah, that's all that matters. Like, and living your truth, that's all that matters, honestly. Like, so.
You spoke, and it sounds like we got kind of similar stories where the transition was a little bit hairy. And you mentioned the dark night of the soul, which again is a common kind of theme for those that make this transition. How would you best describe the dark night of the soul? And I don't know about you. I didn't know what I was going through when I was going through. And if someone had told me, I would have felt a lot better because I would have been, oh, this is just part of the process. But how would you best describe it? Because through your work and our work, there's a lot of guys in particular that are going to do this transition when they kind of start to ask more questions. But how would you describe it, and what can people potentially expect?
So how can you describe it? Complete reality breakdown, complete breakdown of beliefs. And it's that tipping point, isn't it? Like you see so many people go the other way. Like, so that's a clear example that how hard it is, like it is a hard thing to do. It is a hard thing to show up for yourself in those dark moments, because we're actually programmed to dwell on the negative. And so in those moments, we're just thinking about all the bad things that are happening and what we've lost, and we're not looking at what we've gained. So I think it's very, very hard. And I understand, like I can see why people, they can't keep going on, like, and they really struggle to have that perspective shift to be able to show up for themselves. And I don't think it's wrong if people can't. Like it's just either this lifetime or the next lifetime. Like you've got to, so there's just lessons. And I think for myself in that, there's no other choice. Like you're at this lowest of lows, and it's like, well, I know what that's going to create, so what other choice do I have? I don't have another choice. And you choose the choice. I chose that way. And I believe the collective and the consciousness of the planet now there is more support around. And I mean, there didn't used to be. And so in the male space, we've had no one to talk to in a toxic masculine space, because it's cut each other down. It's tall poppy syndrome. It's, jealousy. And so when you don't feel that support from your mates or your like-minded work crew or whoever, your family, it is very hard. But if you have the gentleman's club, or if you have somebody that believes in you, then it's much easier, because in those light moments, you know who you can call on. And then all they have to do is say a few words to you and of encouragement, and that gets you out of that dark moment. It's like, hey, bro, go have a beach swim and do some breath work, and then call me back. I want to know how you're feeling. And they're like, oh, someone actually cares. And then they have the courage to keep going. And I think we oversee the little things. The little things are the big things. Like everyone wants to focus on biohacking and all these complex things all the time, but they're not doing the basics. It's like, just today, don't think about tomorrow. Just today, just show up for yourself. What does that look like? And then when you start, oh, well, I know how to show up for myself today. And if you just do one day at a time, it's just like this step. A week later, you're like, I feel 50% better than I did last Monday. And yeah, it's just a process. It's easier said than done, but when you look back, it's all perfect. Like you can definitely do it. Everyone can do it. They just need somebody to believe in them.
Mate, it resonates massively. And I know you spoke about energetics and people coming into your world at different points. And for me, I'm guessing part of the reason you started the Gentlemen's Club was a similar reason why I started Momentum, was because one, I didn't know what the fuck was going on when I was transitioning. I was like, this is dark. And two, I didn't have anyone around me who, one, understood it, or two, probably had the skills to connect and communicate. And everyone's obviously doing their best, but there's a real skill in asking better questions, listening properly, holding space. And again, all it would have taken for me is probably to have one person who got it, and I would have been a lot better off. And, it got dark because I was doing it on my own and, quite lonely in that transition. And, as you said, and again, everyone's on their own journey, it will often mean that there are people that fall away, or that you potentially even distance yourself because you're on different page. What encouragement or what words would you give to someone who, one, is going through that transition, but two, potentially even friends and family who might be able to help navigate? And one of the best things that you said, which really speaks true for me, is one day at a time. And the reason for that is because often when you're going through that period, and I think we can both attest to this, there is at times a lack of clarity as to exactly where you're going. And every time for me, I looked far ahead, I thought it was like a metaphor of like the future looks bleak, until I tried to see the future when I couldn't see it. And I was like, oh, this isn't a metaphor. This is actually legit. Like it looked bleak, and it gave me so much anxiety. So I just came back to like, how do I win the day? And for me, it was knowing my values and just sticking to like, if I could exercise, if I could get some sun, if I could eat well, sleep well, and just things will open up. What's your experience both as the person going through it and potentially if there is someone going through it, how can we support someone, in that transition?
Yeah. So supporting someone in that transition, I feel, is listening and holding space, because I think you don't feel heard or understood. Like you said, key word in there, you don't feel like anyone really understands what you're going through because everyone's circumstances are different. So like, how can they possibly perceive what I'm going through? The worst thing you can say to someone's like, when they're like, yeah, I understand, like it's not that bad, or, because then they're like, oh, there's no compassion there. So we're always quick to give advice. Your mates are giving you advice and it's like, oh, you just got to do this. You just got to, sleep with somebody and they'll get you over your ex-wife. And they're all things that don't need to be said. And I think we just need to become better listeners and hear and actually see the man, see the person talking. And if we do that, then we actually tap in and actually learn something. We're not there to just, give our two bobs, give our little answer. We're like, oh, what does this person need right now? It could just be a hug, That's what I've noticed. Like a lot of men might not have a hug in 6 months, and it's like, you can think whatever about that, but it's like giving you a hug. It's like, man, I see you. It's okay. You're going to be okay because I'm here for you if you need. What do you need from me? And asking them like, do you need anything? And then they're like, oh, actually, I'd love to just, go for a catch up or a coffee and just be able to, bounce some ideas or create some connection, because we'd underestimate how powerful connection is. And so it's also different for every person. So I can't just say like one thing and that's going to be the right thing. So I think the best thing is tapping into your own intuition, calming yourself in the situation and listening to them and going, what does this person need right now? And I guarantee the answer will pop into your head and it'll be like, this person needs this. And yeah, that's what I do. And it works. Like I do it for the men and they're like, oh, wow, you're so present. You actually care, because that just being present and listening and seeing them is connection, and it is giving them what they need in that moment. And then it's like a flow-on effect of what they desire next. So
one of the things that you speak of, and you've spoken about it a few times, and I really do think of it as a superpower when you can develop this trait, and it's still very rare, is having people feel truly seen. Like, I think most of us could probably, you and I are probably in very fortunate circles these days where people understand the value of that and have probably developed it as a skill. But I think for most people, in fact, I've done a couple of polls, most people have got less than 5 people. And there's a lot of people that don't have anyone in their world that they feel seen by. What's the value in that? And even, as we kind of transition into the Gentleman Club, what is the Gentleman Club or Gentleman's Club, and how does it help with these guys looking to potentially make the transition or find a different community?
Yeah, so the Gentleman's Club it's a community, it's a brotherhood, and like I was saying before, it's that support. So all the information that we need to live the best life is out there, but you got to go and find it. You got to go and seek it out. You got to, you've got to really be creative in who you trust and all that kind of thing. So we developed the Gentleman's Club from lived experience of what we would have loved in our dark times. And what we know works, like the Gentleman's Club, it was a 6-month program. We've just condensed it to 3 months because it's easier for men to commit, we've realized, if it's just that little bit shorter, and then they can do another intake, but it's better for the consciousness of someone taking that leap. And what it is it's a 3-month program now, and it touches on everything from relationships, mindset, community. We do a survival camp in the bush for 3 days, and that's getting back to our roots and making fire and shelters and a simulated hunt. And then we're helping the guys go through their finances and their values, and we have a vast array of modalities like breath work and meditation and exercise, and we do a cleanse and food, and it's so big and it's all needed. It's all coming back to that basics of the low-hanging fruit. If you can get that right, once the men start to get that right, that allows them to see another possibility, and then we help them and say, hey, like, what other possibility would you like to create? And that's when they start to have a clear mind and can actually tap in and write down, hey, this is what I would love to create. And that support, that brotherhood and that community is how you get there. Because like you said, if someone's got no one at home believing in them, they come in and there's 10, 20 men that believe in them, you know, and that see them and you share your goals with everyone. It's like, okay, let's do this. Let's hold Mitch accountable to his goals. Like, where's he going to be in a month, you know? And it's that positive culture that we don't have. And I can see it transitioning, which is amazing, going from that toxic to more men wanting to step into that divine masculine where we support each other and actually become proper men. Like we're weak men at the moment. Society is built on weak men. And so we need stronger men that stand up for what they actually believe in and not just curl over and just go, oh, it is what it is, you know? So that saying in Australia, you know, that is what it is it isn't. You can change. You can choose again. You know, like that's victim mentality. It's I'll just do this because I don't really want to put the effort into making that leap.
You mentioned there the survival camp, and I think another term you might have used is rewilding. What's the significance of men rewilding when it comes to the domestication of men in the 21st century?
Yeah, so it is, honestly, I think that everybody should do rewilding a couple of times a year. And whether that's just with your family or just a couple of mates, but being able to go back into nature, turn your phone off, and like I said before, we are primal evolutionary beings, and we still require sunlight and grounding and eating good foods and all these amazing things that we don't do enough of. So being able to go in those environments, it's kind of like a cleanse. It's like letting go of all the crap that you've built up and just going, hey, I'm just going to put that to the side and I'm going to do something for myself. And you build up this life force when you're out there because you're connecting with nature, and you actually come back with newfound goals, newfound clarity, and you have this life force to go, actually, maybe I don't want to do that anymore. And we've noticed that with the men, like they said, oh, I've got to do this more. This is just unbelievable because it actually feels natural. It's like what I'm designed to do. And a lot of the guys start bow hunting and doing all these things that they never thought they'd do after the camp, because some of them from the city, like they haven't actually, every office worker should go and do a rewilding camp if they haven't grown up on the land, like, and connect back to themselves. It's like disconnect to reconnect. We disconnect from the rat race to reconnect to our actual selves. Like we come from the earth and we're reconnecting back to the earth. And I know I use all these analogies and people go, oh, that's, whatever it is. But just look at the science of when you say it, you do come from the earth, and we're in concrete houses and we're doing all these things that are disconnecting ourselves with our phones. And so just to be able to let go of that and go out there, your brain is a clear space for new found ideas to drop in. And
you spoke then of these blokes kind of coming in and doing some of the rewilding and taking some of the activities potentially back into their world. What for you personally has had the biggest impact in terms of, daily practices, weekly practices, or even, monthly, bi-monthly things that you integrate into your world that have really kind of had a big impact for you over the last few years?
Oh, that's a good one. I would have to say your morning routine. If you design a bulletproof morning routine, you're going to have a good day. Absolutely. Like, what are you doing in the morning for yourself? We go to work and we're trading our time for money and giving our time to somebody else. And most people, when you ask them, I say, what have you done for yourself this week? They can't even, it might be one thing on a Saturday. You need to do something for yourself every single day. So when you start doing that, you're filling your cup. Everyone knows what filling their cup is. When your cup's full, you're sweet. You can take on whatever. When your cup's empty, you don't got anything to give. So my morning routine has just been a game changer. When I wake up and I do, my breath work, my beach swim, and my 45 minutes of exercise, I do a little bit of journaling just to kind of get clear on what I'm trying to achieve for the day. I make sure I have water and all these, take a few supplements and but I've designed it for me. And there's also a cold shower in there. Every single day I get up and I go straight to the cold shower, boom, straight on, jolts the energy, start the day. And it's like that hour in the morning, it's honestly, you can't put a value on it. It's so big. If you don't have a morning routine, like I can't stress enough how important it is. Like it is so important. And then also an evening routine as well, setting yourself up for sleep. because that is thinking about the next morning. It's like, you can't expect to go to bed at 10, wake up at 5 or 6 and feel good. You're subpar, your sleep's impaired. And so these are the low hanging fruit. Everyone's like, oh, that's so easy. Give me something amazing. Well, life is only amazing when you do the simple things. So start doing the basics, and then you can start looking at the complex thing,
Mate, it's been really good to talk, and I'm actually amazed at how similar elements of our stories are. For those that want to find out more about you, the work that you do, where's the best spot for them to find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So just on my Instagram, Mitch Adams __. I've got my website, Linktree there. I have my own website, and you can, if you're interested in coaching or, getting rid of some of those limiting beliefs and creating new possibilities, then shoot me just through my website and I'll get back to you. And
awesome, mate. Appreciate your time.
Awesome. Thanks, Blake. See you, mate.